Good afternoon. As you might be able to expect from the name of my organization, I'll be talking about standards, and it's going to be on AI and safety. So let's get to it. Right. So I'll give you an overview of what standards are, what kind of standards there are, the kind of risk management process that are in place in different places, how it differs, how they're kind of similar, and talk about how it works, how these standards processes work, how it's related to regulation, policies, and then something about what we're doing, what you might be able to do as well, how you can reach out. Okay, so overview. What do standards do? We all know what standards are. What do they do? Common understanding between market participants. You go to different countries, USB ports are exactly the same. They all work the same. There are also another dimension there that is about some kind of minimum requirements. If you are trying to buy a product from another party in the supply chain, how do you know that that product is not going to blow up in your face? So if there are some standards that define how you can know that the product is safe and by meeting a certain requirement, then you can have confidence that the product is okay. There is some standards that also do an additional thing, which is to translate high-level regulation or policies into something that you can actually work on. I mean, legal text, you can't really do much with that because that just kind of tells you what you have to achieve. The step-by-step thing would be the actual standards, and some standards do exactly that. So what kind of standards are there? When people say standards, they usually refer to formal standards, the stuff that ISO, IEEE, the SAN Standard Acts of the world, they write up. So like 42001, AI management systems. You also have something kind of different. I mean, there aren't these aren't clear buckets of categories, but this is sort of one way to categorize things. You've got government technical frameworks or guidance, and I think NIST is sort of the unique one here. You've got NIST AI RMF, that's the famous one. And we also have de facto standards, which are, practices. Sometimes they're written, sometimes they're unwritten, but basically practices that a lot of people do, and it just kind of becomes common knowledge. So these are, like frontier AI safety frameworks, model cards, system cards. So these are standards. Okay, so what is safety? And what makes safety standards? So safety is, I mean, you can think about it as freedom from unacceptable risk. So that's like risk management. How do you manage risk such that it becomes acceptable, and then you can say that's basically safe. So safety standards are basically how do you operationalize risk management processes into a set of documents that you can follow and that can make you, safe. Okay, so I'm going to jump between, standards, regulations, and also like policies, and risk management processes, and I might just tie the few together. You are probably quite familiar with the diagram on the left. That's the NIST AI RMF. The processes there would be like map, measure, manage, and in between all of those, you've got govern. You may not be as well familiarized with the other diagrams. ISO 31000, that's the ISO framework, which is actually kind of similar. Scope context criteria would map quite well to map, and then the risk assessment stage would be like kind of similar to measure. And you've got the risk treatment, which is kind of similar to manage, and you've got the stuff around there that is kind of similar to govern. It's not usually a one-to-one mapping, but you can. There's a bunch of crosswalks out there that says what corresponds to what, and if what kind of stuff you can do that lets you comply with both of these. It's a bit of a mess, but that's why compliance is sometimes difficult, especially if you're in different jurisdictions. But there are similarities there, and it's kind of a similar process. It has different terminologies. EU General Purpose AI Code of Practice as well. I'm going to talk about that a bit more, but it basically goes through the same kind of process. Okay, so I'm going to go one more level up into the regulatory level. So I'm going to talk about EU because, you've probably heard of the saying, America innovates, China replicates, and Europe regulates. So the Europe is pretty good at regulation because they've been doing that for a long time. So the regulatory regime and the regulatory environment there is quite mature. So yes, I'm going to use this as an example, and we can see how things are going and how things have been, and where standards sit within the regulation. So EU AI Act, Article 55. So this is an article that is probably most interesting to us because that spells out the obligations for providers of general purpose AI models with systemic risk. What they mean by systemic risk is basically high impact capabilities, which basically means frontier models, the large models, larger than 10 to the power of 25 flops. So it is actually within the legal text that says you need to perform model evaluations, you need to assess and mitigate possible systemic risk. So this is literally in the legal text itself. And how do you comply with this? So one option down there in Article 55(2) is that you can rely on this thing called a code of practice. And if you use that, you can use that to demonstrate compliance with the obligations that are in paragraph 1, which is like the stuff above there. So what is a code of practice? That was back to this, and the code of practice process is on the top right corner, has a similar framework with ISO 31000, similar framework to NIST RMF. It has a bunch of other tags. It goes into a lot more detail. It's kind of similar to a lot of the frontier safety frameworks by AI companies as well. A bit of nuance there, but you get the idea. Okay, so I'll talk a bit more about the EU AI Act implementation and see how that ties into standards and also the code of practice. And then you can sort of get an idea of like how things are going and how things may not have been going too well. So back in 2021, that was like 5 years ago. It's an eternity in AI timelines. The AI Act was actually proposed back then. It's a long time. And then it was actually published in 2024. That's when it was published in the OJ, Official Journal of European Union, which means that was when it's official. And then the bunch of boxes after that are the dates in which things come into force as per the AI Act. So you've got 2025 May, the Code of Practice is supposed to be ready as per the Act. 2025 August, the general purpose AI obligations start to apply. And then you also have, after today, in a few months' time, in 2nd of August 2026, Annex 3 high-risk obligations. So that's the high-risk AI systems that are in the domains like, education, vocational training, critical infrastructure, that sort of thing. They will start to apply it's April now, in about 4 months' time. Supposed to, as per the Act. And then next year, in August, you're supposed to have a bunch of other things like machinery, toys, that start to apply, and that's in August 2027. So how is that going? Okay, so when you have such a regulation, then you need sort of the standards to support that, and the standards. So this is for the high-risk AI system. I'll talk about the GPAI Code of Practice next. That's for the general purpose AI models, so that's different. For standards for high-risk AI system, that's built on the new legislative framework. It's the same kind of standards ecosystem. Once these standards are harmonized, basically it has general validity within the union, then it gives you a presumption of conformity. That's what they call it, which means if you follow those standards, you are presumed to have complied with the regulation on top. Okay, so how is that going? Back then, in June 2021, European standards bodies, CEN and CENELEC, has already created a Joint Technical Committee, JTC 21. That's the standards body that is tasked to write the standards for AI. And then in 2023, I'm not sure why it took that long, the standardization request was issued. So basically the commission says, okay, go forth and write some standards for the AI Act, for the high-risk AI systems. And the deadline then, as set by the commission, was 30th of April 2025, which is like almost a year ago. That wasn't done. So the commission said, okay, fine, we'll give you a new revised standardization request. So they issued a new one in June last year. And then and they said, okay, the new deadline is going to be 31st August. As you might expect, nothing is ready yet. And we are here today. And the obligations are supposed to kick in about August. And we don't have much news about where the standards stand right now. There is a digital omnibus going on, which is sort of a package to say, okay, how is the AI Act supposed to be simplified? And there are proposals to delay the time of entry into force to about next year, end of next year. So that's currently ongoing. Still hot off the press. It came out about 2 weeks ago. It's supposed to be finalized, I think, in a few weeks' time. But, things are sort of moving and not necessarily in the right direction. They're moving kind of slowly. We've got the third line down there, the green line, which is about general purpose AI models. That's for code of practice. This one has a lot of it's a different process than the high-risk AI system standards because this doesn't go through the usual formal standards process. So what they did there was basically the commission looked for a bunch of experts. They became the chairs and vice chairs, kicked off in 2024 September, and then by the time before the general purpose AI obligations started to apply in 2nd of August, the code of practice was basically ready. It went through a few iterations, and in August, actually 1 day before the obligation started to apply, the EC and the AI Board confirmed that the AI is adequate, which means like you should basically follow that, and if you follow that, we're not going to ask you too many questions. We assume you're kind of okay. So that's on the code of practice side, which is quite different from the standard side. So, okay, what are the takeaways here? I guess, yeah, we all want standards. I think a lot of talks here talk about standards, and standards are great. We want them. But of course, there are things playing in there. Some people want the laxer standards, and there are also incentive structures that stand in the way of having good standards in a timely process. And there are, fundamental trade-offs between a few things. There's like degree of consensus. The more consensus you need, the harder it gets. Enforcement strength. If a if a piece of standard is supposed to support regulation, then of course it's going to go through a lot more scrutiny. If it has to be a lot more specific, some standards are kind of high level. I mean, as long as you have some kind of management system, that's fine. Some standards go into a lot more detail. The code of practice is one such standard. It goes into a bit more detail than, say, ISO 31000. So these would also take a bit more time. And of course, all of these affect the speed of delivery. And as we can see, with the standards for the EU AI high-risk AI system, that has been taking a bit longer than we have expected. But there is also work that we can do to improve things across all of these axes. So what are we doing? Yeah, so we as an organization, AI Standards Lab, we are involved in both the EU regulation side, Code of Practice, JDC 21, providing feedback on the digital omnibus. We are also trying to work on some de facto standards as well. So like coming up with documents that say, these are the best practices for these sort of things, and try to get buy-in from people so that if, companies and stakeholders can agree on a sort of best practice that we can do, we don't have to wait for the formal standards to kick in. So yes, so that's kind of what we are doing, and I'd like to get your views on, like, if you're in Frontier Lab, what kind of standards do you need? What's in the way? Are the standards that you have good, or do you need some kind of standards that don't yet exist? And also, like, is there any other areas that you think there should be standards and we could collaborate? So if there are any, please reach out. So I'm just going to put some advertisement here. This is our website. And that's me. If you have any thoughts, any ideas, please reach out and let us know where we can move things forward. So thank you.